Can we shuffle a little bit to get you in here? It's here. Yeah. I don't know where we want. Let's. Okay. Do a little dance now.
I'm not dancing. No dancing.
So Anne-Kathrine is going to introduce us, and then we're going to introduce ourselves.
Right,
I just started recently and then I give up.
Are you going to be running around with the microphone?
Yes.
Because there's going to be like it's participatory the whole session.
Maybe one more. Mike,
We get another microphone.
can we have two?
No, we only have one here.
We don't need two?
We need
I will
one.
get another mic. We are already.
No, don't get another.
No?
It's
Okay.
only one person at a time. Can anybody hear me?
No, it's only for Zoom. This mic is only for Zoom.
Oh, okay.
This
Okay.
too.
Okay. So, so
Shall I
you
start?
the session.
I start?
We'll just hang here for a moment.
But come further forward.
Yeah.
So warmly welcome now from the side of the room chair. I'm actually just been said that I'm not necessary here because we have two gorgeous facilitator that will facilitate the session, but I will I always have that problem. It's better. Okay. So I'm allowed to introduce Young Bang. He's actually grew up in England and he's been involved into kibbutzim communities, camper communities, and the eco-village movement for various years. And he has a lot of experience to bring, and he will share that with us in that workshop. And I am also allowed to present Anton from Israel. He is living in a kibbutzim for 25 years now, born in England, and also brings a lot of experience with him about storytelling in communities. So I will support them handing around the microphone and invite you always to speak in the microphone so that the people from the digital world can follow us.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's great. So we have a program which I think we've coordinated now. Another word about myself. I've been telling stories and listening to stories for, I think, around about 200,000 years. Most of that time was in small groups, probably not much bigger than this, actually, where we sat around a fire and told stories. That's what we actually did. And then in the last few years, they went to television, things changed. So that's why I like to have a candle in the middle, because this is a way of being. I just want to say another thing, that we do have participants who are not in this room, but because of the nature of storytelling, we felt it was not that appropriate to have storytelling as an online event. For my part, it's probably because I'm not so used to this new technology, but there's something about storytelling, about sitting in a circle, about watching how people sit in different ways, looking in their eyes. When you're telling a story, it's not just a voice. It's actually a person sitting there with you. So I'm really glad to welcome all you people out there. And I hope that you enjoyed the session, and I hope it inspires you to set up a storytelling circle wherever you are.
Okay. Yeah, I've been telling stories and hearing stories for a few years less than Jan. With all due respect, and there's a lot of respect. And I feel there's a lot in common between storytelling and living in community. And I think a lot of living in community is about telling stories to ourselves, to each other, and to others, and hearing stories and learning those stories. This is a session that myself and Jan have run 3-4 times at previous ICSA conferences, because it's an opportunity, a more structured opportunity for us to hear great stories about living in community and to share stories. So we want to try and create an environment where people feel comfortable telling stories. So this is the circle that we're in. There's a few more online, and we're the people that are going to tell these stories and hear these stories about our experiences with other people. And we all have experiences with other people, and those stories are interesting and important. I wanted to start off with a quote by Steinbeck. We are lonesome animals. We spend all of our life trying to be less lonesome. One of our ancient methods is to tell a story, begging the listener to say and to feel, yes, that is the way it is, or at least that is the way I feel it. You're not as alone as you thought. So we've got a few methods that will enable us to get into the swing and share our stories. So I'm just going to kick off with the first method. Basically, we've got some posters here with a sentence that the participants here in the room are going to basically continue the sentence with a story. Okay? So the first sentence is, a moment I realized I was in the right place was when. A moment I realized I was in the right place was when. ... The most angry I have been with someone was when. The most angry I've been with someone was when. And finally, the last time I cried in a community setting. The last time I cried in a community setting. These are 3 unfinished sentences. If you would like to go for it, somebody volunteer to be the first to tell us a story that starts with one of these 3 sentences. Go for it, Dan.
This will be a quick story, but as soon as you read a moment I realized I was in the right place was when I remembered the moment in ICSA 2019 when I was at the bus stop with a car and these 4 very disappointed people watched the bus pulling away at a session they wanted to attend in a different community 20 minutes away. We had a lovely ride through the New York Berkshires.
Yeah. I can also tell a story about when was the last time I cried in community setting, which sadly wasn't that long ago, where my neighbor passed away because she suffered from cancer. She was a young lady with 2 young kids, and it was one of the most beautiful funerals ever. The whole 200 people, the village stood and we sang and we walked behind her to the church, and we had a beautiful memory of her with a party afterwards. Actually, I would like to briefly share the last time I cried in a community setting was actually yesterday, when I was part of the Shabbat ceremony. And for me, being German and participating in a Shabbat is really way ahead from being normal. And so it was really a healing moment, and it didn't feel personally. It felt like some collective tears. And so I'm really grateful also for you and for you putting it up. And I'm grateful that you held the Shabbat ceremony open so that others like me can join. And I also would like to share a moment I realized I was in the right place was during our COVID conflicts in my community called ZEG. And we managed to have one circle where we all felt safe enough to share whether we were vaccinated or not. And I realized I was in the right place because we could all see that each one of us thought that he or she is doing the best for our health. whether I was completely convinced that vaccination is a catastrophe or the opposite. We all saw we are doing the best for our health, and we could share openly why we came to very different strategies, how to work or how to take care of our health. And that was a very precious moment, that in this time of fragmentation, 20 people at least could get together and feel connection, even though the outcome, how we act, was very different. But in the essence, we saw, wow, we are convinced to do the best thing we can do right now.
Thank you. Hold on, just 1 second, Vincent. Can we move out and let everyone into the circle? I think there's enough space to do that. So we're one circle.
There's also space here. Yeah.
Sitting in rows.
Yeah, I know. You're right.
There's a seat there. There's a spare seat. Thank you. Vincent.
Yes, I'd like to share at the moment when I realized I was in the right place. I was coming to the conference here. I did a lot of preparation with having to get from Belfast to Dublin and then to fly to Copenhagen and get to train. And I thought, yeah, I had everything arranged. And then when I was in Dublin, I stayed in a hotel in Dublin because, getting through the security in Dublin airports is quite difficult at the moment. So I spent a night in a hotel. And then I sort of just checked up, where is the train station in Copenhagen, because I thought it was at the airport. And it was at the airport. But then I realized there's 2 airports in Copenhagen. So I had a bit of a dilemma. Was I going to fly to the right one? And I was flying with Ryanair, and they have a sort of tradition of sort of flying to out of the way airports, and a lot of you have probably experienced that. So we were flying over, and we were coming in, and it looked very small. But then as the plane got on, the airport got bigger and bigger. So maybe this is the right one. But I wasn't quite sure, and then we sort of go through, and I headed towards where there was the train station, but the train to here wasn't up on the list, and there was no way of checking with anybody. There was nobody around, and there didn't seem to be any information or sort of online way of checking. But then after a half an hour, somebody arrived who worked for the train station, and I asked her, and she said, yes, you're in the right place.
Nice. Nice. Any more? One more? Okay, we'll come back to you. Oh, go for it. Wait, 1 second. Aaron.
No, we have to.
No, it
בסדר.
doesn't.
הכל בסדר.
הוא עושה את זה מטעמים הלכתיים.
So, from a historical point of view, well, you know, all my products was the country about the top.
No, Jan.
It's for the people offline.
So I was looking at the data on capital. One of the ways they measure the capital is asking for a survey, they ask people, so how many people in your social network you have, you can wake them, there's a crisis in the middle of the night, you can wake them up, knock on the door, and ask for help. Without excluding your wife, people with friends, you just walk up to them and ask for help. And 20 years ago, the number in the United States, the average number was 3. Today, it's between 0 to 1. You know, it means that some people have 0. It's an average. And some people say they have no money life, they can actually come with some professional, not the doctor, a friend, they can go to. And then I said, okay, what if I ask this question myself? Or my friend in my community, what about the charts? We have like 50, 60 people who can go knock on the door in the middle of the night, ask for help. go to the hospital or whatever it is. It was all for me that every time in the right place.
You got one more?
I was moved with what you said, Ina.
My name is Ruth, and this is a rather intimate story. It includes Jan, and I don't think he'll mind at all if I tell this story that happened
Soon find out.
nearly 40 years ago. We had been together already for many years, and I really hadn't wanted any kids. I didn't see the point. Why on earth would people want kids? But eventually, after about 10 years, I decided, oh, you know what? I really would like a kid. And then it wasn't so very easy to get pregnant as I had imagined. I was already getting a little bit older and was on a waiting list for hospital, tried different therapies, didn't get pregnant for another few years. And we decided to carry on our lives, decided to take a year off, as we have often done. We took a year off from England to go to the Arctic. We lived for a year in Arctic Norway, where the winters are incredibly long and incredibly dark and rather lonely. And out of the blue, out of the dark, well, I got pregnant. In the darkest time of the year in the Arctic, so remote, well, I had thought I was meant to be at home, you know, getting the nest ready, and the nest was getting a bit old. So lo and behold, I got pregnant.
Thank you.
40 years ago.
Thank you. No, we've not heard of anyone sharing a story about the most angry. Yes, in community.
Yeah,
Angry.
it just actually this threw me back. My name is Nara. I live in a small community in Slovenia. It's 2014. We are renovating 2015 actually. Yeah, no, 2014. We're renovating our house we just bought. The kitchen is like kind of small, improvised. We are like 15, 20 people, including volunteers working. Some people are working, some people are there in the kitchen and all that. And some food has been saved on the side for the people who are still working. And one of the founders, actually a woman who is normally following things, but she kind of sneaked in and she wanted to steal some food from the one that was saved. But we had this volunteer. She's a very temperament woman. She's like a bit bigger woman with a voice you can hear. If she yelled back home, she would hear her. Like she's like, "Arr!" So what happens? She notices the stealing happening behind her back, and she was kind of guarding this thing for the workers. And the founder is stealing. So she just lost it. She started yelling. But then the way the founder yelled back and how she humiliated her and how she was really nasty to her because it's a founder and volunteer dynamic. And I got so angry at the founder because of the way she was yelling and the words she was choosing. And it's one of those dynamics that you really don't, that happen inside communities, like spontaneous, like out of, but what hurt me most was that our founder didn't want to admit, one of the founders didn't want to admit that what she was saying was wrong. So, and then we had lots of dynamics about it for a long time still.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to change directions a little bit, but before we do that, we're going to stand up. Remember breathing? You still breathing, anybody out there? So stretch a little bit. It's actually, this is a challenging room because of the air stuff, the air unconditioning. So just do that a little bit. Just keep stretching while I set up the next thing. And when you finish stretching, you can stop stretching. We have in most communities places which you will probably recognize. A bedroom, some people have shared bedrooms. Dining hall is a community thing, and we have community workplaces. And those are all places that we know when we live in community, we're familiar with that. We move from one to another through the day. And those are the things we have. We also have feelings. We have euphoria. We have frustration. These are not linked like this together. We have anger. We just heard anger. We have jealousy. We're certainly jealous of people sometimes. And I'm going to put it in the middle. We have love. And what I would ask you to do is to look at these. They're not that many. You can see them and you can read them upside down probably also. See if you can link a feeling to a place. And if you can tell a story about a feeling either that you had or that you saw in a particular place. So I guess your story was really about anger in the kitchen. So it was a great way into this particular thing. Just another way to think about stories that you've experienced. And the floor is open.
Please hold the mic steady and close to your mouth for the benefit of everyone.
And there are two mics, so we can put one there, and you can tap it around yourself.
Dining hall in a kibbutz, it's usually a place that you meet everybody, and it's a real nice place to see. And what I want to tell is a story about my research about elderly people in a kibbutz. And it was in the dining hall that they have this, I don't know which weather was it, but it was a holiday. I don't remember. I think maybe it was Purim. Purim when we all dress up, and I was making this research about the elderly people in the kibbutz, and they have all kinds of shows. And one of the shows used one elderly woman, which was a really nice woman, was very active, and they used her to make her laugh. They just they had this on the screen that she's shouting during a meeting of a kibbutz, Asafat kibbutz, how do you say? The assembly, and she said, I can't hear anything. I can't hear you. Okay, now, she was very much appreciated that she was going to this assembly because she was very old and she was still very interested in what's happening. But the way they use this, they put this scene several times. Now, if you know something about humor, if you use it once more and more, it's become, funny. And the funny thing was that the funny aspect of this, on the one side, she was much appreciated, she was still interested, but on the other hand, she was looking very silly to be old person in a place that you should hear. It was like a very, how dare she come to a place when she doesn't hear? If we imagine a kibbutz as a place that you can go anywhere, this scene shows that there are certain places that you can't go, as we know, like in the city, you can't go to any disco places because, if you're out of age, nobody will get you in, or you feel that you're out of place, that you're not in the room. And the fact that they show it, I felt very angry. I felt very, I had a very strong feeling that she was hurted, because on the other hand, she was appreciated, but on the other hand, on the other hand, she was humiliated. How dare she? And I felt anger that they use it to show that she's out of the place in a way that they try to make a comedy, but they're making fun of her. Okay. And
Thank you.
Okay.
I can tell a story maybe to keep things going. I've got a microphone, I think. And I'm going to choose anger and the bathroom. At the beginning of my communal living life, right about 20 years ago, I was living in Jerusalem. We were about 10 or 12 people living together in 2 joint apartments. And it was a particularly bad winter in Jerusalem. There was snow, and half of the electricity went off in one half of the apartment. So we all camped out in one apartment. And I needed to get up early in the morning because I was flying to England to visit my family. And I went to the other side of the house and there was no lights. And I went to the bathroom. I was like, I need a light for the bathroom. So I found a night light. And I put it on top of the toilet. And I finished packing and I left and I went to the airport and I got to the airport. And about 6 a.m. at the airport, while I'm waiting for my flight, I hear an announcement. Anton, go and phone home. Okay, that's pretty strange. So I go and I phone home. It might even be before I had a mobile phone. I phoned home and one of my commune mates picks up the phone and he's starting to shout at me over the phone. I'm like, calm down. I don't understand what you're saying. What's going on? And he says that you caused a fire while we were all sleeping. I woke up and I could smell smoke. And I rushed into the bathroom. And when I put my feet down, my room was full of water. And he swam through the water to get to the bathroom. And basically what he found was that the light had melted the whole toilet all the way down to the floor. And then the water was gushing all over the whole apartment. And he was like, it's lucky that I woke up because you could have burnt us all. And I was at the airport about to get on a plane. And I was like, okay, what do you want from me? What I'm about? I mean, I'm sorry. And he was, wow, how could you do this? I was so dangerous. And he was very angry. I got on the flight. I was thinking about it for the whole flight and the whole time I was in England. And when I came back and when I got back home, the toilet had been fixed already. A new toilet was in there. And yeah, it was pretty crazy. Still think about it. Still feel guilty. I was trying to help. I wanted people to have a light when they were getting up to go to the bathroom in the night. That was what I was thinking anyway. Yeah.
We don't have really a center. We have a synagogue. You don't have it here. And but my wife's father passed away 2 months ago or something. And the Jewish tradition is to sit 7 days. There is the funeral, and from that you count 7 days in which people can visit you. And she said in another city, but on Saturday afternoon, after at the evening, he invited people to our place in Jerusalem, our community. And it was amazing how many people came and sat there. It was, I think there were 60 people or something like that in our yard, listening to Hili about her father, telling about her father and sharing and asking questions and listening, mainly listening. And it was love.
Thank you.
So I'm going to tell a story about euphoria in the dining hall. I have a community called Fed in New York City where it's arts and culture based. We don't all live together, but I'm living in the space and we have a, for lack of a better word, dining hall where we share meals. And we were celebrating Passover, which is the holiday of freedom, We had a Freedom Seder, which we had an opera singer named Marcus Hawley who was singing Black slave spirituals as a way of connecting to the holiday of freedom and the experience of going from slavery to redemption, which is common in the Black and Jewish traditions. Those who were at my presentation saw a brief clip from one of those seders that we did. And the experience was so transformative about just exploring these themes of, slavery and going to freedom and just exploring the parallels. And it was very musical. And some of the people who were there were sort of singing together and jamming, and it just became a very musical place. And out of that experience, a band formed of the people who were there. They later started a band and they performed around New York City. So the euphoria kind of continued into that experience. And it was a very hopeful and euphoric moment. I live in Harlem, where there is a strong Black community as well as a Jewish community. So the sense of coming together was very important and meaningful.
A kibbutz story about me, the kitchen, and frustration. When I was a young member on my kibbutz, I worked in the dining hall in the kitchen, and after the meal, there were about 200 pieces of chicken that were left over for the next day, and they are on I don't know how to call it, something very high with what? But I went that on wheels that all the chickens are arranged on them, and I have to carry them to the fridge, to the big fridge. So I'm pushing that chariot, I don't know how to call that, with all those 200 pieces of chicken, and there was a small slope, and all that construction fell. With all the 200 pieces of chicken on the floor. So I didn't know what to do. I asked I know I called the manager, because the kibbutz, we are equal and there's no manager, but the one that was in charge of the kitchen at the time. And he looked at that, he didn't cry and didn't say anything to me. Like, okay, collect them back and put them in the fridge. Well, you see, the floor is clean and we have nothing else, no alternative for tomorrow. Well, as I say, we are equal, but he's senior anyway, and he's in charge. So I collect them all back and put them on the fridge. The next day, I didn't come to it at all. But no one on my kibbutz was sick after that.
What will they do tomorrow?
Great story.
It's
Another place, another emotion. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yes. Yes, my story involves love in the kitchen. And this was in Finnhorn, and I was volunteering in the kitchen. And I've been very impressed with the way they relate to each other. Like they do attunement, they hold hands, and they tell each other how their day is, so that if one is tired or impatient, so they can treat each other with kindness that day. So they start with this attention. So I was impressed with this interpersonal relationship. But then in the work, one of the coordinator of the kitchen, she asked me, so Amsale, can you get milk from Betty? And I was like, Betty, who is Betty? Where's she? And I was like, no, it's that one. And she points a machine to me, and they have named their machine Betty. Oh, okay, that's Betty. I'll go and get the milk. But what I realized is they also name their machines, their PCs and so on, so that they also treat these equipments with kindness. So then they have longer lives maybe, and so on. But I remember that they even love their machines and named them. So that was my story.
Thank you.
I wanted to tell a story about between communities in one city, and it involves
frustration and anger. I don't know, I don't see her pain, but I'll say it. A year ago in May, we had in Israel riots, especially in the mixed cities between Arabs and Jews. And in one of these cities, incidentally, during the last years, I found myself working with each one of these communities. And during these riots, what was so painful there that everybody felt a victim. Everybody was victim. Everybody felt attacked. Doesn't matter if we were Jew or Arab. And during these riots, something really, really sad happened because two of these communities shared a school. And they tried to gather the parents, Arabs and Jews, to come and talk, and they couldn't do that because they didn't want to meet each other. So because I worked with each one of these communities, I called each one, the Orthodox intentional communities there, and the Arabs one, and the Jew and the secular Jews. I called each one of the people I knew that were leaders in a way, and I offered to meet each one of them separately, and try to convince them that we will meet just 10 people. We won't do anything, just we'll hear the pain of each other. And that's it. That's it, without saying anything. And I met each one of them, and they were so disappointed, each one of them, and so angry, and so painful, and so frustrated that they didn't want to meet. And I remember myself crying in the phone and asking, where the people are so good, there are no bad people, just people who feel bad, and how we can do with that something. So I tried a month later, and it didn't happen. So I just wanted to say a moment, I didn't lose my hope, but it was really painful. That good intentions sometimes are not enough.
Good.
I want to continue what's happening in another city, where the community had a forum that worked for about 12 years together, Leaders Forum, Arabs and Jews. And when it started in May, they work together and they talk together, and they do a lot of things that no one knows, but they talk together also with the mayor. And in this city, there was the less riots. Yeah, it was a mixed city where Gamli.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And they're really close.
Yeah, they're really close. Yeah, and they really community of leaders. Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's take one more.
Take it on.
Place, an emotion. One more. Yes, Deborah.
I used to live in a cooperative house with 30 people, and it was inspired by B.F. Skinner's novel Walden 2. So we had a behaviorist designed work sharing system where you got points for doing your jobs, and then if you didn't do your jobs, you got fined. And this is a story about, I guess, a combination of frustration, anger, and jealousy in the bathroom.
How old were you?
I was in my early 20s. And so there was a member who was pretty wealthy, and he used to sign up a lot to clean the bathroom. But he wouldn't clean the bathroom because he was wealthy and the fines didn't change his behavior. So you'd go to the bathroom and it would be filthy and you'd feel angry and frustrated, but maybe also, if you're honest, just a little bit jealous because he had so much money that, he didn't care about having to pay the fines.
Wow. That's great.
Thank you.
Yeah, right.
Okay, we're going to change track. We're going to move on to the next activity. But first of all, let's stand up again. Let's do another bit of moving. Let's try and move our bodies, a bit of stretching. Okay. The final exercise. I've got 3 statements here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to read out the statements, and then you're going to share a story that either proves or negates the statement. So, for example, the first statement is community can facilitate personal growth. So you have a story that proves that this is true, or you have an example and a story that puts this statement into question. Community can facilitate personal growth. The second statement is the relationship with my life partner and the time I devote to community are easy to balance. Yeah?
Yeah.
The relationship with my life partner and time I devote to community are easy to balance. And the third one, living in community can change the world. Living in community can change the world. So again, a story that either proves or negates the statement we've put down here.
It's open.
All right. Oh, we don't hear from this. Okay. I don't know if it falls under that category, but right before holiday, before I went to holiday this year to Sweden, I was really burnt out by my high ambitions and family life and, community life and so forth. And I took a week off right before my holiday. That's going to be for 6 weeks. So it took some strength to understand that, first of all, I needed that very deeply at that moment. I took a week off and walked around kind of like a ghost in the community, trying to be invisible in a way in the community. Yeah. What? Good luck. Oh, you should have come to our lecture, but that's legamre mutar. It's okay to do that. Nobody can tell me otherwise. But as after a few days walking around like that, one person stepped into my life and she just completely saw me. And she's just like, "You're done. Come to my house." And I said, okay. So I came to her house and she sat down and she spoke to me and gave me such a deep analyzation of what I was going through for an hour and a half. And then she gave me a massage for an hour and a half. And it just completely changed my life experience and my personal growth. And she just spoke so clearly about my mission and why I came to this community and what she sees in me and what my passion must be, and it was so, I hadn't been able to look inside and see that for myself. I was blind to my own mind at that time. It was just so beautiful, that experience that someone sees you so deeply, and she just completely changed my life and made me grow again from being really at a point where I had nothing left to give. So yeah, it's beautiful how we can also get so tired of the people we live with, and then when we fall apart, they're there. I don't always trust that I can fall apart, that I can allow myself to fall apart into the hands of these people. And then I don't have any other choice, and I do it, and they catch me. Some of them, yeah. I don't need all of them to catch me. 30% of them, definitely not. But there are these human beings that just in that moment sees you so deeply. And I'm just so grateful in that moment to live around these 60 people that come to me when I truly need it, and they know how to see exactly when. And yeah, so definitely can facilitate personal growth.
Yeah.
A story, a personal story. I think it speaks to the message of personal growth. It's a famous Hasidic story from the Jewish mystical tradition. It was a rabbi in Ukraine. They were all in Ukraine, all the rabbis. That's where they grew up. So he would go, there's a Hasidic tradition to go and do a ritual cleansing in a body of fresh water. So he would go to the river, winter, summer, the frozen water, he would go every day, to get in the water. And one day, the local cop was replaced. And this time, there was a new young cop, a policeman, and he walks around doing his morning patrol. You see this crazy old man running naked into the frozen water, which seems a bit awkward. So you ask him, take him out, pull him out of the water, and ask him, "Who are you? Where did you come from? And where are you going to? What's going on?" So the rabbi kept cool. It was really cold. He looked up slowly, and then he asked the policeman, "Tell me, how much do they pay you for the job that you do?" So he told him 20 kupekas. Kupekas is the cent of the ruble. It's not much. Okay? Even back then, it wasn't that much. So the rabbi tells him, "Okay, I will pay you twice as much to come to me every morning and ask me, who am I, where did I come from, and where am I going?" And in a sense, I mean, there are many ways to keep those questions alive in ourselves. You can hire a policeman, you can knock everything on. You can put a reminder on your cell phone. But I think that what a community does, it really forces you to ask those questions, not every day, but on a regular basis. Like it forces you to ask those questions about your identity, your history, your purpose in life. It's not always easy. I mean, sometimes it's very, and we're talking in the previous lecture about peer pressure and gossiping. It's not always nice, but it squeezes you to ask those questions and maybe find answers.
Thank you. More stories? I can tell a little story about how. Oh, I've got one. I come wide up. I can tell a little story about how community living changed my life. We lived on Kibbutz Gezer for many years, and there was a member there who I didn't really like very much. I never really had any big arguments, but I just didn't like him, which is fair enough. Our paths didn't cross, so it wasn't like a problem. And we left, and we came back. We came back every year to visit. And a few years ago, I think it was the last time we were there. The kibbutz had taken in some Ethiopian refugees, and I heard that this person had voted against that. He was very much against taking in refugees because, you know, the kibbutz needed its own money, and why should we? And we were short of housing, but I felt that was another nail in that coffin of dislike. You know, that makes it even more, yes, I'm right, you know, to dislike that person. And then I heard that when these Ethiopian refugees actually came, there were two young kids, and before they came, he had taken a little child's bicycle and he had repaired it and painted it. And when the day they arrived, he came and gave that to one of the kids. These kids were street kids from Tel Aviv, like single mothers with street kids. And this kid had never had its own toys. And the kid was like, wow. So I heard that story and I thought that was nice. And a couple of days later, I'm hitchhiking into the kibbutz, which is like a kilometer from the road. And a car stops and it's him. And I thanked him. And I told him that, I mean, he probably didn't like me either. It wasn't like, you know, I just said, you know, we didn't really like each other. I said, I heard the story and I really want to thank you. And it really changed the way I see you. And then we got to the kibbutz and we parted. And then a year later, in the newsletter of the kibbutz, which I get every week, he died. And so I wrote a long letter to his wife, telling that story. And that's one thing that community changed the way I look at it.
Story about how to change the world. Not the world, but the sense. So I worked in Nepal in a community building in an area that has few villages in Madabesi. And the idea of community building was there how to help people to make their basic living, because they had nothing to live from. They took all the traditional way to live, and it was a big issue. And so what we did when we worked there is to help them. They didn't have the notion of being a community. There was like houses all around, and most of the organization come to the Far East. They bring either human capital, they teach people how to work or to do things, or physical capital, pigs, whatever. And when I came there, what I brought the knowledge about social capital, how to create relationship. And so we worked with them, and they were fighting, because when they were trained to do agriculture, they were fighting in between them because they had human capital, but they didn't have the social capital. So we worked there for few years, and we taught them and built the structures of how to organize themselves, groups of women and children, and we created the youth movement there and with the young adult. And then 3 years later, the earthquake happened. So the human capital wasn't relevant because nobody could do anything alone. Physical capital destroyed completely, right? No physical, but the social capital, nobody can destroy, right? So they were the first villages to organize themselves, knowing how to use all the huge amount of help that they got from the European and all the Western world. And many times it go to waste and nobody knows what to do with it. But because they had their own structure and feeling of belonging and that sense of being a community, they could use and overcome themselves as quickly as possible in order to. So it's a small story, but maybe it's a sign that.
So this is how community can change the world.
Yeah.
Thank you.
The relationship with my life partner and time I devote to community are easy to balance. Right?
Most of the time, you stay home.
Yes.
My partner and me, we actually live in two communities, each of us in one. And it's nice, although it's like really challenging, because we have like community meetings every week. He has it actually on Monday. I'm having it on Tuesday. He has community meetings, intense weekends every month. I have it every 3 months. So we hardly make spaces within, and we are both having children, not with each other, but with other people. And we are both working full time. So we actually made it to have like one evening a week where we can actually meet and exchange what we actually experience in the rest of our life. So, and me, I'm having like, when I'm not working at the university or in my community or with my child, I go out riding. So I thought it's actually a really good idea putting what I love most into the eco-village my partner lives. And actually, since I have my horses there, we even meet less. because Because he tells me, since you have the horses in my community, I only see you running for your horses. And you're here, but not for me. So it's kind of making two complex lives, bringing them together. It's sometimes not making them less complex.
Maybe he should move into the stable. Maybe that will help.
Time?
Yeah.
We have time for one more, then we're going to wind up the session.
You finish off with this.
Yeah.
It's very short.
It's because I'm right in the middle of community can facilitate personal growth. 2 days ago, my very sweet and dear neighbor said that she wanted me to take down a tree that I really, really love. And I said, well, I'm not very happy about that because I find this tree is so beautiful and the leaves turn bright red and I enjoy it so much. And she just rolled her eyes and go, well, I don't. So you can either tear it down or pick the leaves up from my lawn. And I was a bit shocked. So I'm in the middle of personal growth with her. And we'll see where it ends with this tree. Right now, I don't think her and I should take the decision until we can see it from other points of views.
Wow.
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 Thanks for that. Now that's a great segue to the next ICA conference. We'll get the next episode.
So yeah, we want to again finish on another couple of quotes. Storytelling is the most powerful way to put ideas into the world today. I think there's a connection between what we have to say and how we say it. And I appreciate sharing. I appreciate the stories. I think it makes our experience here at the conference richer to share stories very intentionally in a session. So thank you. Thank you.
Right. I wanted to quote something from Barry Lopez. I'll tell it to you. The quote is right here. He says, if stories come to you, treasure them and tell them and pass them on because they actually have a life of their own. And I was sharing with Dan the other day that I had this idea once to write a book where the chief character is a story. And how that story goes from place to place, from century to century, and changes and grows and develops. I probably will never write it, but I love thinking about it. And I just want to finish my part by saying that you think this was actually a storytelling session for fun, but actually we had a hidden agenda. This is a training session for storytelling. And we would like you all to take storytelling back to your communities because it's actually one of the most powerful community building tools is telling stories. And you can tell stories about your communities. And that's a great way to take something from this conference and take it back with you. And if all goes well, there'll be another session in 3 years' time.
All this.
What?
All this.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, that's it.
Lunch.